Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you an episode review from the classic Goosebumps show, and it's The House of No Return. This one is a very different feeling episode from the old show. It's based on a short story from Tales to Give You Goosebumps, and it's a very one and done feeling episode, but that horror it invokes for the simple premise it has is very good. I think this one gets overlooked, might be over criticized, might just be underrated, if you want to look at it like that. I think it's a very exceptional episode. It does have its problems, as I'll get into later, but I think it's a pretty good episode for what it is. It's not top 10 worthy for me, but it's definitely like top 20, I would say. So the plot. So these three kids, Lori, Robbie, and Nathan, are part of this danger club society they have in their neighborhood, and they're trying to recruit a fourth member because their club doesn't feel like it's big enough. They're trying to expand their club because three people doesn't really sound like enough on paper. So the episode starts with them trying to recruit this one kid, and the kid ends up bailing, and Laurie's kind of the leader, and she's like, well, if he can't hang, he's not worth doing this. Now, mind you, these kids, I wouldn't call them posers, but they're definitely, I wouldn't say bullies, but I think they're like the kids that, kind of run the cool kids circle in the town or neighborhood they live in, and they're kind of like elitists, and they're very selective on who they recruit, and I guess they were running low on their list of people to recruit at this point. So in walks this new kid in town named Chris. He just moved in, and he runs into these three kids, and they say, hey, you want to join our club? And Chris is kind of hesitant at first, but he doesn't have any friends, so he says, why not? So these three kids take him to this initiation place, which is basically this haunted house. No other recruit has ever been able to finish the haunted house. They have to stay in there, I think, for, I don't know the time, maybe it's an hour. I'm pretty sure it's an hour, but they survive an hour, they get to, become part of the club. And Chris is like, you know what, I'm not that afraid of everything, but I guess I'll try it. So the kids, of course, kind of coerce him to go into the house, and then the episode gets into Chris's experience inside the house. Now, for a 21-minute episode, it's very fast-paced. It's gonna seem kind of rushed, but you'll get the idea about what the story is as it keeps going. So Chris starts to notice these things happening in the house, like if something knocks over, things start like a broom and dustpan start floating and start picking up the trash. And he starts noticing a floating hammer nailing a piece of wood into the front door, and he gets panicked. He's like, oh no. And then there's a allusion to these ghosts that might be trying to mess with him, and he screams. And then it fades to these three kids who realize that the hour has been up, a lot of time has gone by, and they go inside to get Chris and say, hey, look, you're a part of the club. And then when they went in there, then this big reveal happens with these ghosts, and the fate of these kids, as you'll learn, is at the very end of the episode, and then the episode ends. So a little backstory about the ghosts before I get into what I thought about it. The ghosts were kind of a weird premise for Goosebumps. It's kind of on a sadder note. There are two ghosts. It's a man and a woman ghost. They're deceased married couple who lost their child a long time ago, and they passed away due to grief. And ever since then, their spirits have thought to be haunting the house. And you'll find out their motives in the story if you watch the episode or read the short story from Tales. But anyway, that's the origin of the ghosts inside of the house, as you'll come to find out. So, review of the episode. Now, I will say, based basing it off the criteria that this is an adaptation of a short story, and they were able to actually make it flow really nice in a 20 to 21 minute episode, that gets an A+. The pacing on the episode was really good, although it kind of felt choppy and rushed, but it's to be expected, with especially with a short story that doesn't really have that much source material to base it off of to begin with. I think they did a pretty okay job in this episode. I like the effects of the house. I thought it looked really creepy. I liked the effects for what it was. You know, it is a low budget show from the mid 90s, mind you. They worked with what they could. The makeup was pretty good. The actors actually weren't half bad. But let's get into the negatives. Okay, so the premise itself is kind of boring. It's not my go-to episode by any means to watch in Goosebumps, but it is one that every once in a while I'll get the urge to want to watch. I will say, for first-time viewers, a lot of people's criticisms would be, this is very boring. I mean, what are we supposed to be watching here? And then when the episode ends, you're like, oh. And the scary part of the episode really doesn't happen until like the final 5 minutes. But for what it was, I mean, it was okay, but it's just like not perfect. I mean, I guess that's my complaint about it. It's just boring and not perfect. When it comes to rating The House of No Return, the TV episode, on a scale from 0 to 5 stars, I think this is above average for the show. I definitely think it's top 20 material, but I don't think it's 4.5 or higher. But where I landed on it is a 4.3. I deducted 0.3 off for how boring it felt, and I guess another 0.4 off for it just, you know, not being the most exciting episode ever. I mean, I guess I deducted 0.7 off altogether for it being boring and not exciting. I guess that goes hand in hand. But that's how I felt. I think it deserves a 4.3. I think it's a very fair grade for this episode. So yeah, that was my thoughts on the House of No Return TV episode. What do you guys think? Did you love it or hate it? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you next time.